Hello, hello. Morning, everybody. Good morning. Hello, hello. Checking, microphone checking. Hope y'all can hear me. I don't know how long I'll be able to live stream with video, but we shall see. Looks like we've got audio and video, so that's good. Good morning, everybody. Hello. If you guys could please let me know that you can hear and see me okay. Looks like everything's good. Give everybody a chance to pile in here. Lone Zen Warrior, what's up, buddy? Doing okay, man. Hanging in there. Windex cleans your brain. What's up, buddy? Yeah, that's a very strange question. I get so many strange curveball questions from people. Like the question was, let's see, why don't you hold those in the FE community to the same standards that I hold others? So I say, well, some context maybe. And he goes, sure, Bob's bio on the FEIC 2018 page was updated multiple times, removing information with no explanation given. When people ask about it, they get banned. Don't we deserve to know why so much information was removed from his bio, a bio that he personally approved before it was posted? Okay, first of all, I never read the bio. This is the first I've heard of it being edited. And you know, the whole question was, why don't I hold people in the flat Earth community to the same standards as others? So, like, what am I known? Is it like, am I known for going around and poking holes in people's bios? I don't get it. Like, wow. But so, you know, if Bob wanted to edit his bio, I think that's Bob's prerogative. What I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. But so, okay. Hey, Matt, Cocoa Beach. Yeah, hey, man. Yeah, Kennedy Space Center. When is that happening? Text me up, man. You got my number, right? I'm sure you do. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to, man. I'd love to. And actually, you know, in the next week or two, I should be financially capable of taking a little mini vacation. So that would be awesome, God willing, if everything comes through. So, okay, and so Windex cleans your brain. His original bio called him a professional engineer as well as other such things. That was all removed when people asked him for evidence that he was an engineer. Um, I don't know, man. You'd have to talk to Bob about his bio. You know, what do you want me to say? As far as I know, he's an electrical engineer and he is a pilot, and he was in the Army, Air Force, Navy, something, I don't know. He was in the armed services. So good. Thanks, Lone Zen Warrior. Loud and clear. Great. All right. Obtuse one. Okay, I'm new to this. I don't understand how places like Iceland have 7 months of darkness every year in a flat Earth model. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you have to research in flat Earth, and I think that the biggest thing is removing ourselves from the ball Earth heliocentric theory, because we are raised in this matrix of believing that the Earth is a spinning ball in infinite space, and you know, the sun is millions of miles away, and what causes day and night is the spinning of the Earth. And when you realize that the Earth doesn't have curvature, so it therefore cannot be a sphere, the rest of that stuff must have a logical, rational explanation. It must, because we can observe it. And so, you know, it's one of those things that you have to look into. I can talk on it. I didn't have anything prepared for it, but my best answer to that is that we experience the sun subjectively. Okay, so we all view our own little personal instance of the sun. See, in the ball Earth model, we're led to believe that the sunlight is coming from the sun in parallel lines to us from millions of miles away. But in flat Earth, the sun is local. It's relatively close, relatively small, if it's even a physical object. And we observe the sun subjectively because for a variety of reasons. You have perspective in play. atmospheric lensing or like refraction. And yeah, so how can, and what was the question again? I'm like sort of lost here. Nicholas Brown already dragging the trolls in. Yeah, I know. So don't understand how places like Iceland have 7 months of darkness every year in a flat Earth model. Yeah, and do they? Is it 7 months? I don't think it's 7 months of darkness, is it? Maybe I'm wrong. Um, there's several different models. So let's just, I'm not sharing my screen, but have you seen the azimuthal equidistant projection? I like the projection. It is not a model per se, but in that sort of a scenario, the sun is basically making a seasonal pass from the Tropic of Capricorn to Cancer and back over the course of a year. And so when the sun is highest in the sky on the equinox, it's over the equator. The northern solstice, it's over the Tropic of Cancer, and southern solstice, it's over the Tropic of Capricorn. And in the southern solstice, while the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn, it's at its furthest point away from the far northern hemisphere, where you'll find. Did you say Greenland or Iceland? So let me just Google this. So Iceland, 7 months of darkness each year. Let's get the mainstream. Midnight sun, Iceland. Each year, the north part of the Earth tilts towards the sun between April and total darkness. So I'm getting a little blurs here. So I guess I should share my screen. Let me pull up an AE projection. AE projection. Right, let me see if I can share my screen without giving away my Hangouts link. Uh, sorry, guys. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, so let me share my screen, and I'll try to do so without giving away my Hangout link here. Where are you, button? Where's my button? I don't want to. There we go. Okay. Well, that could have been bad. Okay, so AE projection. Here you go. Let me just copy and paste this into a place where I can make it larger for you. Give me a second. And it's it's a valid question. But again, while this is loading up to where I can paste this and kind of show you some stuff, my best explanation for that, the way that I see it, and I'm no authority on this, but this is just what I've gleaned through my few years of research into the topic, is that the sun is a subjective phenomenon. So like we're trained to believe that the sun is we view the sun as sort of a monolithic objective reality, okay, and that's very drilled into our heads. But in reality, let me see if I can get a diagram here. I think I've got something I made. Apparent sun. Yeah, here we go. So this is not to scale, but okay, so say that this is the actual sun here. You've got two observers that are hundreds or say thousands of miles removed from one another. They're each viewing a subjective instance of the sun, okay? And a number of factors come into play. We all have atmosphere around us everywhere. And in fact, atmosphere on the macro level is a liquid, and it behaves as a lens. And it's a cumulative effect. So, 10 feet from me, the atmosphere is completely transparent. But 10 miles from me, if you can see a mountain that's 10 miles away, the atmosphere begins to, accumulate. and it'll start to gray things out in the distance and eventually completely obscure things, and reflects light back at you as a bright blue sky. That's the light from the sun is scattering and reflecting and refracting through the atmosphere. But so at any rate, in this diagram, you can see, and again, this is just to show a point, that we all walk around with varying degrees of an atmospheric lens that follows us around wherever we go. If it's foggy outside, of course, that's going to be a much tighter, smaller atmospheric lens than if it's a crystal clear day on top of a mountain. And so the fact that in the AE projection, so let me just pull that up here. Bear with me, folks. Ooh, that's a bit grande, isn't it? And there's a lot of infighting about the AE projection. Frankly, I like it. I think it does a good enough job of explaining how certain phenomenon in reality are not exclusive to a ball Earth. So one would be day and night. The other would be time zones. The other would be the seasons. So, okay. That's a bit large, but okay. Just bear with me, guys, making this little diagram here. And by the way, I hope you guys are having a lovely Saturday morning. Okay, so in this sort of layout, the sun is making a seasonal pass from the Tropic of Capricorn through the equinox to the equator to Cancer and back. When you're in the northern hemisphere, and the sun is at its far southern pass, and again, it'll make a ring in this model. It'll make a ring around the Earth every day. North is in the center. South is every direction away from the center. East and west are right angles to north and south. So, this direction along this latitude line is west. And when the sun is at the furthest south, so that would be Capricorn, is that? Yeah, right there. When you're in the far north, it's just not resolving for you. And that has to do with perspective as well as atmospheric refraction. So when you're in this scenario and you're in the far north and the sun is so far away, far south, it's not going to appear in the sky for you. Now they say in the ball Earth theory that's because of the tilt of the Earth, although in the flat Earth reality, it's because the sun physically changes its position overhead during the seasons. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Oops, there we go. So I'll try and catch up and see, check in on the chat for a minute. I do have some material to cover with you guys today, but just giving everybody a chance to pop in. And okay, Ute, hey, what's up, Ute? Formerly known as YouTube. August, September, there should be speed changes on Earth according to the heliocentric model. They aren't there in reality. Yeah, that's I guess maybe you're talking about orbital speeds. Anyway. Dog says at the Morgile, GPS signals are Doppler shifted, which only happens for movement. So if GPS comes from stationary towers, why do they show a frequency shift caused by 5,000 plus mile per hour movement of the transmitters? Never heard that before, but I don't know. There's just so many of these little things that globe earthers and that they'll try to say, "Oh, gotcha! See, gotcha! This is exclusive to a sphere." But when you actually look into the evidence that they're pointing to, it can either go either way, or it's just nonsense. I mean, I'm not saying that this is nonsense. That's the first I've heard of it, but What would the 5,000 mile per hour come from? Because they say that if you're standing at the equator, you're you know, rotating around the axis at 1,000 miles an hour. And of course, the orbital velocity of the Earth is alleged to be 18.5 miles per second, which is 6,600 miles an hour. Okay. So GPS signals are Doppler shifted, which only happens for movement. Well, wouldn't they all be moving relative to one, or like not moving relative to one another? So there would be no movement. See, that's the thing about the spinning ball Earth. It is a fixed frame of reference, no question. And this is admitted by ball Earth standard science. The spinning ball Earth is a fixed frame of reference. And what that means is, all those little towers shouldn't be registering any relative motion between them. Okay. So, you know, a fixed frame of reference, the only true fixed frame of reference that you can have in reality is a fixed object. Okay. And I know you're going to say, well, the spinning ball Earth is a fixed frame of reference, but that's a problem. Physically is a problem. Okay, because we're not even talking about rectilinear or straight line paths with no acceleration, although in my opinion that would not make a difference if we were, because if you have a moving body as a fixed frame of reference, it will behave as such. It will behave as a fixed frame of reference only for any object that is not experiencing acceleration away from that primary body. And so, like for example, if you were to say take an airline flight and fly an airplane, well, let's back up here. Let's say that you're in a moving train going straight down a track at a fixed rate with no acceleration, not hitting any bumps, going just absolutely straight. As long as you're sitting in your chair and not accelerating, that train certainly does behave as a fixed frame of reference. But if you sprint towards the rear of the moving train, you will find, and I promise you will, I've done this myself, you will find that it is easier, or it takes less energy to sprint towards the rear of the train as it's moving forward than it does to sprint towards the front of the same train. And this is because, again, this is my point, a moving object only behaves as a fixed frame of reference as long as you are fastly secured to that object and not experiencing any acceleration away from it. And so when you add into the mix, however, curvilinear paths, because that's all there is in the ball Earth theory, is curvilinear paths. So you've got the rotation or alleged rotation of the Earth around its axis. That would be a curvilinear path. You've got the alleged orbit of the Earth around the sun. That would be a curvilinear path. You've got the alleged orbit of the sun around the galaxy. That would be a curvilinear path. And you've also got the motion of the galaxy, which, you know, there's lots of different ways that they claim that works. They say that it's going around a great attractor. They say maybe it's going away from the Big Bang theory. So maybe that's a rectilinear path. Maybe it's a curvilinear path. But the thing is, okay, the point to all this is, if you are traveling at a consistent speed along a curvilinear path, there is constant acceleration involved. Constant acceleration. Okay, and that is angular acceleration, and that will manifest as centrifugal force or a thrust out and away from whatever the axis of rotation is. Okay, and so this whole argument about Doppler radars allegedly experiencing 5,000 mile per hour plus movement of the transmitters, you know, I don't know, man, you know, but the fact of the matter is, if the Earth doesn't have curvature and it is demonstrably not in motion, then that is all moot. Okay, and we can, you can demonstrate for yourself that the Earth is not in motion, although it won't mean anything to you. Take an airline flight. Take a westbound flight from New York to LA, and then take the return flight from LA to New York. Sometimes those flights are virtually identical in duration. And that is absolutely just not going to happen if all of the destinations are racing towards the east. Okay, it's just not. Now, um, maybe I'm doing a piss poor job of answering that question. That's the first I've heard of it, and frankly, I know this may make me seem hard-headed, but there's absolutely no piece of evidence, especially when you're talking about Doppler shift for stationary towers. There's no piece of evidence that you're going to show me that's going to reconvince me that I live stuck to the side of a spinning ball. You know, it's because there's there's so much evidence to the contrary that the Earth is flat and stationary, which we're going to review today. That it's just absurd, frankly. I mean, you would have to probably um, put a gun to my head in order for me to claim that the Earth is a spinning ball, and even then, I probably wouldn't do it, honestly. Okay, so let me read through a few more questions, and then we'll get into the meat of what we were going to discuss today. Uh, Generic says, Scotty Gesso, you might want to do a few minutes of investigation before you make a fool of yourself in public. So not sure what he said there. Well, anyway. Ute says, planes can fly at 750 miles an hour under the speed of sound and fly 10,500 miles in 14 hours. The AE projection never was ruled out in the first place. Agreed. And, maybe I can talk on that real quick while people are still popping in here. But I did pull up the AE projection. Maybe I'll go ahead and pull up a Mercator projection as well to make a point, because this is a very valid point. Okay, so you've got, and by the way, the AE projection, what it seems to me is merely a Mercator projection that is wrapped around a central point, as opposed to linear like this, where you've got the lines of constant course. Okay. One of the big problems that people perceive with the AE projection is, so like the distance portrayed from here to here. Let me just draw a line so you guys can see. Okay, so the distance from there to there appears to be too far. However, this map was only ever intended to measure distances from the central point south. Okay, so like from here to here, or whoops, or from here to here. It was never intended. This map is not intended to measure distances like from here to here. It's just not what the map was intended to do. But so, okay, Mercator projection, this is loved and adored, and maybe the Gauss-Peter projection is a more updated version of this, but it's essentially the same thing. Okay, this line here, the 90 degrees south, 90 degrees south latitude, is represented as a line of the same length as the equator. Okay, and this is a ball Earth approved map. Okay, so we know the equator is about 25,000 miles long. The 90 degrees south, on the other hand, is allegedly a single point on the bottom of the sphere. Okay, and so this line here is not 25,000 miles long, or it's not supposed to be in this map. Okay, this line is 25,000 miles long. This is a single point stretched to infinity in this map. Okay, so if I were to say that the distance from here to here is way too long on the globe, you globetards are stupid, it would make me seem foolish because I'm interpreting the cylindrical conformal map improperly. Okay, same thing goes for this. Okay, so again, I believe that the AE projection is a ball Earth model mapped onto a flat circular map. So I don't like it in that regard, but in many respects, again, it does show us how the time zones work. It shows how circumnavigation around the central north works, day and night, and of course the seasons and the midnight sun in the far north during the southern solstice, and vice versa in the northern solstice. So hopefully that answers the question, that original question. As far as the Doppler radar things, I'll look into it. So let's see. Okay, let's see what Wiki has to say about Doppler radar dishes. What was the exact phrasing of the question? It was 5,000 mile per hour motion. Yeah, I'd definitely have to see a link on that. because the Google, the be all end all of truth in this world, is not bringing up anything right offhand. So yeah. Anywho, let me pull up my Gmail here. Because okay, so this is the first main thing I wanted to talk about. I got a email from the Flat Earth's favorite troll, Tim Osman, and you just gotta love this guy, man. And let me just check in on the chat, make sure that you guys still seeing my screen, hear me okay. GPS Doppler shift. Okay, dogs. GPS Doppler shift. Okay, sorry, paraphrased it wrong. So let's look at it. Do you have a link? Can you provide a link and maybe I can read into it? That would be great. Because okay, GPS Doppler shift. Oh, for radio towers. Okay, so let's see. GPS towers, 5,000 mile per hour Doppler. Yeah, if you could provide a link, that would make it much easier. Dog Z. So I opened up the Google. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. So we got it. Pad Thai says Tim Osman rocks. Yeah, he rocks all right. If by rocks you mean he's a freaking. No, I'm not going to say it. Yeah, he rocks all right. Scotty Jesso says, so 6 months of dark debunks flat Earth, correct? I know, right? Exactly. Because the only thing that debunks flat Earth would be curvature of the Earth. I mean, right? Am I right? The only thing that could possibly debunk flat Earth would be to show concrete, verifiable, repeatable evidence of geological curvature at a rate of about 8 inches per mile squared. Okay, that is necessary to result in an overall sphere of the Earth, especially over standing water. And fact of the matter is, no such curvature exists. Okay, so and again, when you're bringing up arguments like the sun, we can, they can't see it in Iceland for 6 months out of the year. They have dark. How does that work on a flat Earth? How does the 5,000 mile per hour Doppler shift of radio towers work on a flat Earth? Dog says he cannot post a link. It isn't showing up. Okay, I will put my email address in the chat and then send me an email. It's themorgile@gmail, but I'll put it here anyway. Send me a link and I will try to look at it. There you go, dogs. Yeah, Tim Osman is really something else. And so what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to read you guys this email that he sent me, play the accompanying video that he attached, and then I will, go through some points and have some fun with it. Sleeping Warrior says, you're incapable of distinguishing fake science from actual science, cats. And you're a teacher? It's not okay to push fake science as a teacher. Yeah, really, and the thing is, I don't think that teachers are guilty of deception. I don't think teachers are deceivers. I think that, well, I know for a fact that they were totally deceived as toddlers, just like we were, and led to believe that they lived stuck to the side of a spinning ball. Any logical or rational argument that they may have had against the spinning ball Earth was all quashed while they were toddlers, just like everybody else. And so, if you start out teaching children about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and then never tell them that it isn't real, people would go on their whole lives believing it. Okay, especially if you had, entire organizations like NASA spending 50 million bucks a day to produce a deception of the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, and you had entire educational systems built up around the premise of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Yeah, it could definitely keep going. And that's exactly what the Vol Earth is. You've got people who are brainwashed into believing an absurd lie as toddlers, and they in turn grow up teaching that lie unwittingly to their students. So I don't blame teachers. However, once a teacher stumbles onto this information, and hopefully that's going to happen more so in the coming years, um, hopefully they have the integrity and the gumption to go against the status quo and to, maybe take steps to change the curriculum. And, how do you go about doing that? How does one go about taking steps to changing the curriculum? Well, like everything else in this federally dictated, I use the word democracy, it has to come from up on high. And the only way that's going to happen is if you've got millions of dollars in lobbying power. And unfortunately, there is not much money in the truth. Okay. So, like, what could a teacher do? Well, they would lose their job if they started teaching flat Earth, I would say. Or if they started questioning the globe in their class, legitimately questioning the globe, I would say they'd probably get fired. And yeah, no single teacher is capable of changing the curriculum. I would say even if you had $10 million to lobby, you wouldn't be able to change the curriculum. There are entire empires built up around the ball Earth deception, and unfortunately, it does not look like it's going to change anytime soon unless enough people wake up to it and start taking actual physical realistic steps to get things changed. you know Maybe it'll happen in the next 50 years, maybe not, but all we can do is try. And you know to anybody out there that's listening to this sort of stuff for the first time, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I will tell you what I believe and what I know and what my research has shown me. However, it is up to each individual person to take the steps to revisit what they think they know and skeptically scrutinize the ball Earth theory. And in doing so, you will find just all kinds of problems. I grew up on planet Earth as well, just like everybody else. You know, I was reared on planet Earth, living on a spinning ball. And there were lots of things about the ball Earth theory that did not set well with me my whole life. But we just sort of learned to just disregard our common sense and disregard our logic and reason and disregard our observations because the authorities in our lives since we were very young have been pushing this ball Earth deception, not on any volition of their own, but in being deceived themselves. And, you know, it really is a vicious cycle, and I feel blessed to be among the few. Nat Geo says it's 2% or 6% or something of the population. I think it's more than that, but I feel blessed to be among the few who have been awakened to this revelation. Because I mean, could you imagine if we still all thought we lived stuck to the side of a spinning ball? Sure, I'd probably be um, well, financially better, but I think that we would. I couldn't see it. I couldn't. If I had to do it all over again, I would choose flat Earth because, you know, just living in a lifetime, living in this world of just full of deception and nihilism and atheism and greed and capitalism, all the isms. Um, this truth is life changing. I mean, it really is. It changes the way we view the world, it changes the way we view ourselves, changes the way we view others, treat others. I mean, it really is a revelation of the greatest deception of all time. And it is very much affirmation of not just the Bible, certainly is affirmation of the Bible, but in the teachings of Christ, but it is affirmation of all ancient religions. Okay. So scientism came along hundreds of years ago, ostensibly, and they decided to just completely discredit all of the ancient cultures, all of the ancient religions. The ancient goat herders of the Fertile Crescent who thought the Earth was flat. What idiots! Well, little did we know they were right all along. And the Bible, in specific, talks about a deception that would be so great that it would fool the entire world, and it would even fool the very elect if such a thing were possible. And, growing up as a Christian, I was always on the lookout for this deception, trying to figure out, well, what are they going to do? How are they going to pull the wool over the entire world's eyes? Well, the only possible way to do that is to get them while they're young. Starting in kindergarten, they shove a globe in your face. They tell you live on it. No, you don't live on the top, you live on the side. And it's because the magical theory of gravity that cannot be detected, measured, or observed, because of this magical theory of gravity, we're allowed to stick to the side of the spinning ball. You know what I mean? So, anyway, so let's get on to the email from everybody's favorite troll. So let me clear my throat. Let me clear my throat. Hold on. Right. Hello, this is Tim Osman. Should I do this in a funny voice? No. We spoke a few years ago, as if I don't know who he is. He wouldn't introduce himself. Yeah, hey, this is Tim Osman, the one that hacked into your Hangout and played pornography over it to get your live stream pulled and get you a community guideline strike preventing me from live streaming for 3 months. That Tim Osman? Um, so he says, this is Tim Osman. We spoke a few years ago about a misconception I still have about 6 months day-night cycle. Anyhow, I had hoped you weren't still saying that bad argument, but come to find out you are. Really, what I would like, John, is to see if you want to chat. A cordial conversation. This sounds like the Joker in a bad Batman novel, I'm telling you. A cordial conversation about what evidence you have for flat Earth, what evidence I have for sphere. Really, we can start on 100 different subjects we might agree on, such as the petro debt-based usury system, 9/11, and perhaps others. I have been out here for years telling people who have fallen for this idea why you guys are wrong, and it seems like the flat earth side, for the most part, wants to keep an echo chambers. Keep an echo chambers. So singular and plural echo chambers. Very nice. At the start, 4 years ago, this was mostly rhetoric from both sides. Now there is a plethora of information that goes completely against what you guys have been pitching for this long. Anyway, let me know. So, okay, wait a minute. So, first of all, like, I don't even know what he's talking about. This misconception I still have about 6 months day-night cycle. Like, what does that even mean? I wish he would have elaborated, but anyway. And then, anyway, let me know as. Oh, and then he's. Oh, let me just comment on this. Then he says there's a plethora of information that goes completely against what you guys have been pitching for this long. Yet he will not name one thing. Anyway, let me know. As I said, it will be a cordial conversation. Yeah, sure it will, Tim. Sure it will, buddy. I believe you. Check my channel. I have talked to everyone from Jaren, Bob, Subarats, basically everyone. Things have changed. I would like to show you what I have come to if you're serious about investigating the truth. Thanks. So he says, here's your curvature. So let's see. Let me see if I can grab this image here. Okay, so what he's saying is this proves curvature, I suppose. So let's see. I'm trying to see where one image ends and the other begins. So I guess that's that. Righto. Sorry, y'all. Just trying to separate these out a little bit. It's kind of hard to differentiate between the two because the colors are so similar. Stop it. Okay. Okay, so we are looking at the old ships over the horizon phenomenon, only instead of ships, we're using buildings, okay? But same freaking thing, Tim Osman. So really, you're gonna send me something that I've been looking at since I was in kindergarten and aware of since I was in kindergarten, and try to reconvince me that the Earth is a spinning ball because what? Because objects in the distance that are near the ground or near the water line apparently diminish in angular size, and they do so equidistantly from the center point, which is your eye line will always be the center point. However, the horizon acts as a physical barrier to your line of sight, and so they distant objects will appear to drop top down, bottom first, because of perspective and a bit of atmospheric refraction. Okay, so Tim is saying this is proof of curvature. No, Tim, this is proof of perspective upon a plane, sir, and of course refraction. So let me play the refraction vid. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Love this video. Sugar water refraction. Here we go. So this is what happens to light when you pass light through a density gradient as the atmosphere is. Light bends through the density gradient. And furthermore, if that light is traveling through parallel through a density gradient, it will tend towards the higher density. And in the case of natural world, that is going to be down towards the ground. Okay. And so this isn't my theory. This isn't an idea to, solidify my paradigm. This is a demonstrable fact that can be shown and repeated in a lab, that when light travels parallel through a density gradient, the light refracts towards the higher density, down towards the ground. Okay, so you can show me a million pictures of, cherry-picked pictures, I'm sure, of buildings that appear to vertically descend with distance. Sir, it is perspective and refraction. That's all it is. It really is that simple. And Kinkin dogs, basically what he did was he took a basin of water, dumped some sugar in it, don't stir it, allow the sugar to dissolve. The higher density sugar will naturally settle towards the bottom. The lower density clean water will settle towards the top, and you get that density gradient, much like simulating the atmosphere. And that's it, man. I mean, so you can show me these kind of pictures, which okay, so some of that building, yeah, it's squished down, and you know, I'm sure that if you took the same set of pictures on a different day where maybe it was, less particulates in the atmosphere, less humidity, or more humidity, you're going to get different variances of this. Okay. And so to claim that here's your curvature, which is, let's see, how far away is this? I don't know. I think he said it's 15 miles or something. Okay. Well, what about the 273-mile distance shot for Bar Desicrins? And we're going to go over that as well. So let's get back to the email here. This proves nothing, man. It really does. I mean, this is the same exact argument as Christopher Columbus and Aristotle. Oh, ships disappear bottom first over the horizon. Therefore, the Earth is a ball. Dude, come on, man. It's the same thing. It doesn't do anything. He says, by the way, have you ever seen my 26 miles observation from Antelope Island to Salt Lake City over the Great Salt Lake? Jaren and I have both gone through my drone videos and pictures extensively, and all this was shown to Bob as well. I have repeated these observations and many others, many times, with the spherical model always working. Always working, really. Okay. Well, see, here's the thing, sir, with the spherical model. The assumption is, with your model, that light always travels in straight lines, straight line paths from, these distant objects to your eye. And that is just absolutely not true. Light curves. It bends through varying density media, as you can see here yet again. So let's see it again. Light does not, repeat, does not travel in straight line paths, especially when traveling through varying density gradient media. And also temperature. Varying temperature media will have similar refractive effects on light. And so if you cherry pick a picture like this and say that this proves the ball, I'm sorry, it's nonsense. Okay, yeah, hang on, Dave. I just got a text from good old Dave Weiss, Ditrh. Where you at, Dave? Let's see. Where's Dave? There you are. And I could have sworn that I have already done this, but I'm going to go ahead and give a few of you guys a wrench. You got one. And I'm not like, if I don't give you a wrench, like, don't take it all personally, man. I'm just trying to find some names that I recognize and wrench them up. So, okay. Oh, it looks like Bob's in the chat too. Awesome. What's up, Bob? What's up, everybody? Okay. So let's get back into this email here. And by the way, Tim, no, I have never seen your 26 miles observation. And if I have anything to do about it, I will never look at it because um, I've seen observations and shots from 273 miles away. So what? Like, you think that because you took the observation and used your drones for 26-mile observations, that somehow trumps a 273-mile observation done by the Beyond Horizons team? No. So you say the spherical model always works. Wow. Okay, so furthermore, why are you guys using Walter Bislin's model on his website to explain how the Flat Earth app works? Did you not notice this? This guy has the most advanced curve calculator. Soundly's in my observations mapped, which I'm not going to follow your link because I don't trust you at all. Click Salt Lake City stooping and hit Flat Earth and globe, play with values. No. So who is Walter Bislin? And me guys using, I don't even know who this person is. So he's got an advanced curve calculator. It doesn't have to be that advanced. It's pretty simple. 8 inches per mile squared is a very, very good rule of thumb for the expected curvature of the Earth. And what's funny is if you, let's say you poll 100 globe Earth believers who have never looked into flat Earth, they'll tell you they know the Earth's a ball. They'll tell you they know it's spinning and orbiting, but if you ask them, okay, well, what's the radius of the ball? 9 out of 10 of them will tell you, oh, I don't know. I'm sure I learned it, but I've forgotten. Okay. Well, what's the speed of orbit? Well, I don't know. I'm sure I learned it, but I forgot it. Well, the thing is, if you poll 100 flat earthers about those same questions, they'll tell you exactly how much the spherical Earth should curve, but it doesn't. They'll tell you exactly how fast the spherical Earth should be spinning, but it's not. And same thing goes with the orbital velocities. Okay, so people who believe the Earth is a globe, they do so on very much blind faith and just a reverting to what we were taught as youngins. Okay, and that's pretty much the size of it. And it's like, it's funny, like you can really get someone thinking about this when they say, yeah, I know the Earth's a ball and I know it's spinning. Well, what's the radius? Just a ballpark. What's the radius? I don't know. Flat Earther will tell you, well, it's supposed to be 4,000 miles radius, supposed to, well, just shy, 3926 or whatever. It's supposed to be 25,000 miles in circumference, or just short of it. Supposedly spinning over 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Supposedly orbiting over 60,000 miles an hour. I mean, these speeds are ridiculous, but they are also, again, curvilinear velocities. Orbital trajectories are often conflicting one another. So like the alleged orbital trajectory of the Earth is 60 degrees offset to that of the sun. So like there should be just all kinds of motion, and not just rectilinear straight line path motion, but there should be tons of curvilinear motion built right into the spinning ball Earth. And that motion should be measurable. There should be acceleration built into it. And again, that is angular acceleration by traveling in a consistent speed along a curved path. You're going to have angular acceleration built into that. Okay. So in terms of Walter Bisland, I don't even know who this is. I don't, what like. Okay, and I'm not following your link. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Like, I would not click a link that you sent me if my life depended on it. I would rather die than click your link, sir. Just saying. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so he continues on. Also, I have given all of my information to Jaron about the observations Jay Tolan has done and how 6,000 feet of the mountain range is gone. What is going on here, John? Look at this evidence you provided the other day about the longest distance photography. This is me going through how it works perfectly on a globe model, Walter Bisland's, and wouldn't work on a flat plane. Did you notice the smaller, closer mountains tower over the taller mountain that is further away? Dude, do you know how perspective works? You do realize when tall objects get further away from you, they apparently diminish in angular size. When they get close enough to the horizon comprises a physical barrier to your line of sight, causing the illusion of that object just diminishing from the top down. But in fact, it is squishing equidistantly from the bottom and the top. However, you cannot see the bottom because of the horizon, sir. Okay, this is an optical phenomenon. It is very well explained by perspective. I would suggest that you read the 150-year-old book called Zetetic Astronomy for a very well put explanation of how perspective solves this problem in terms of ships disappearing on the horizon bottom first, or buildings disappearing on the horizon bottoms first. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a building or a telephone pole or a ship. It's the same thing. Okay. So, like, what are you going to send me next? A picture of telephone poles? Because the ships on the horizon is the same thing as this argument. Okay. So, okay, now you sent a link here to a YouTube video, and I will follow that. Okay, I'm not going to follow your other links. I'm sorry. He says, I don't really expect a response, so why did you send the email? But I do offer you a fair chance to tell me why the Earth is flat and not a sphere, with all of the empirical observations such as the equinox angles, northern and southern celestial points, and equatorial star trails near the equator, and so much more. Anyway, take care of yourself, John. Tim Osmond. Okay. So, well, here's the thing, sir. All these things that you mentioned are subjective lights in the sky, sir. So, okay, if you want to get the dimensions of a pool table, do you go around measuring pool balls? Do you? So you want the dimensions of a pool table, you're going to go and take all the pool balls out of the pool table and go and measure those, right? That's Tim Osmond's method of science. Okay. No, that is absurd. Okay. So let's follow this YouTube link, and I guess you guys won't be able to hear it unless I do some finagling. Here's what I can do. I can turn my speakers on and then put my mic to the speakers. And I'll just do a quick check. If you guys in the chat could please tell me if you can hear it.
Lighthouse, did Nate ever come back after I said his whole fucking rhetoric about?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. You cuss constantly during your streams. But if you guys could just tell me if you were able to hear Mr. Osman there, I would appreciate it. And if so, then I will keep going with that. Working? Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, so here we go. Where to go?
Morgile Lighthouse. I can see it because it's.
Oh, maybe I'll start it back at the beginning, huh? Wow, this is 20 minutes. Looks flat to me, sir. Oh, wow. You can see further from higher. Therefore, perspective is a thing. Oh, my goodness. Are we going to get to the point soon? I hope.
About reality.
And then that one, what? I was wondering why he thinks flat earthers should pay for his drug addiction.
That's not what this show's about. We're talking about the shape of the Earth.
And
Let's not add context.
I am too. Flat.
Oh, wow. That's excellent evidence, sir. Let me tell you, excellent evidence. People spreading frickin' rumors about me and talking crap on a live show. Yeah, that is really good evidence for Earth curvature, let me tell you.
In the chat, Nathan has been having a show for over year and a half now about the flat Earth sophism side of Trojan Horse. It definitely did start out about about 70 shows in. It completely changed, and then it completely changed again with Quantum Eraser, and maybe I'll get into that. I don't know how much I have on my mind at the moment, but it definitely has evolved, and the argumentation definitely has evolved. And really, one thing I did want to go over, which is very important, and I haven't really heard them actually talk about this, is this whole Magahold lighthouse situation, where basically why Nathan can say that, oh, we're just presupposing R. I can see it. Look, a lighthouse. It's there. Well, actually, is that even the lighthouse? There's a person, Ruhif, here, who's actually shown it to not be the case here in this video, Nathan, which I'll go ahead and show you here. So you can't see it, but it is there. So what's in between you and there? So anyway, they misidentified something again, and they went on for I don't even know how many shows about this. Actually, it's actually very incredible that even Rumpus and other people went along with this whole thing. They misidentified everything throughout this whole thing. Remember Ireland and Scotland? We can see that, or whatever, Ireland from here. Then oh no, it wasn't that. And then basically everything that they've said has been refuted thus far, right? So anyway, somebody told me that.
Okay, I'm not sure what he's talking about, but just claiming that something has been refuted is not the same thing as refuting it. I'm not sure of the context, so I'm not going to speak on that either way. But don't you love how globe earthers just say, "Oh, that's been refuted," and that's good enough for some people, I suppose.
The Morgile was on this channel.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm really gonna agree to have a cordial discussion with you, sir, when you're calling me Morgile. Wow. Yeah. That's a really good way to attract guests onto your little show there. Let me tell you.
Here, right? So anyway, he brings up this imagery and says that it's basically proof of the flat Earth. Now, there's nothing further from the truth, of course, of these claims that they continue to claim. And we'll go through
this. Isn't a claim. That's a picture, sir. That's an observation. And yes, it does indeed prove the flat Earth. So real quick, let's hold that thought here. Let's get into this for a second, because I do have a diagram. You guys have probably seen it, but this is geometry, trigonometry, simple geometry. There's nothing spectacular about it. But let's pull up my little diagram here. Because really, this, if anybody has any question about the shape of the Earth, just really needs to look at this one picture, and you will certainly find that this doesn't work on a ball, no matter how much you try to obfuscate it and make me seem silly for claiming it. But okay, so here's the picture. Oh, I thought I had it. Where's the picture? There we go. Okay. This is the current world record for long distance landscape photography. It's over 273 miles away. And this mountain in the distance should absolutely not be visible ever, period, if the Earth were a ball. Okay. So let's pull out the diagram. Okay. So again, this diagram recreates that shot. Here's the observation point on the left from an altitude of about 1.75 miles, viewing over 273 miles to the peak in the distance. Now, according to the trigonometry, assuming a sphere Earth with a radius of 4,000 miles, the horizon should be about 117 miles away, and then everything beyond that point should drop exponentially with distance at a rate of about 7.98 or 8 inches per mile squared, which means the tip top of that peak should be over a half a mile below the horizon line. Okay, now what Tim and the Globe Earth trolls are going to want you to believe is that refraction of light is causing this mountain right here, to magically raise up in altitude about 3 miles. Okay, because it's 2.5 miles tall. The horizon should be obscuring over a half a mile above the top. So yeah, I would have to raise up about 3 miles to be able to see the whole thing. Okay, this debunks curvature. This debunks the ball Earth, sir. This isn't a claim of mine. This is simple geometry. Okay, if the Earth were a ball with a 25,000 mile radius, you should not be able to see that mountain. Okay, and this is just one thing. But to say that a 26-mile observation somehow trumps this, I just don't get the logic. But let's continue.
That, of course, we need to here. And all rep to this guy, we'll put this link in the description. They do hold the record for longest distance photography, basically landscape photography. And they have a couple other ones where they've done some more here. And if you actually start looking into these, you'll find some interesting things here. So we'll turn this off here. This mountain peak is 392 kilometers away, 2758 meters high. This one's 443 kilometers away and is almost 1,000 meters higher, but seems to be much lower in this. So they will use this kind of evidence. And basically what this observation is, and I think that maybe a lot of us have missed out on this, is Miles Davis's observation, but with the Alps, like a complete mountain range here. Some of them, I mean, you can pick this image apart where you actually see these mountain peaks. And I did to a certain extent. Really, what I like to focus on here is this and this, because he's really not too far higher up on this peak here than he is here. So it's very similar to Miles Davis's observation. So anyway, that clown went on there. I didn't really listen to it, but I remember this whole argument. And basically, I've never done anything on it on this channel, so I'd like to go ahead and say, because you know, when they pull these random things, tit for tat things up, sometimes it's hard, you know, for people, say Jose today, to understand the arguments. And so a lot of times they'll put their own graphics in here, not tell you where to actually get these images from, and actually tell you anything about this imagery at all, as far as these people saying that it's a sphere. And they
Okay, well, first of all, I will say that I've featured that very image in several videos, and I've gone in great detail of telling people where they can find it. I've even made a diagram showing the altitude of the observer, the distance to the horizon, assuming a ball, the altitude of the peak. So for this, and by the way, Tim, if you want people to join you on your little show, it's probably a good idea not to call them a whore and a clown. Just saying.
can only see it, you know, certain times when when the conditions are just right. So they
It's funny because I actually emailed the guy that took that picture because I kind of thought that maybe he was a flat earther, but I was wrong. I I got his permission to use the image in my book that, yes, I'm still working on. I had some major setbacks on it, but I am still working on it, and it's coming along very nicely. I had to pretty much redo a lot of the second and third editing process that I did of it. Long story. But so anyway, I got the guy's permission to use the image in my book, and he asked me, why do you want to use it? And I told him, pretty cautiously, that it proves that the Earth isn't a ball. And this was actually the first that he had heard of it. And the thing is, this picture here, this single picture alone, debunks the ball Earth. So let's hear how the most infamous globe Earth troll in the world handles this.
Plan to go and do this. They tell you exactly what camera they use, the zoom, and everything like that. So what's great about this observation, the height, everything, and then you can get these mountain peaks and stuff. So you can go to our friend Walter Bislin's curve calculator here and put those in. So you have a target 1 and target 2, and this is presupposing R. So when we're trying to...
Yeah, presupposing R. Okay, so you assume that the Earth is a ball to prove that the Earth is a ball, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Match reality with a model, which really science has a lot to do with modeling things, which these flat earthers don't want to admit at all. But you can put this in.
These flat earthers don't want to admit at all that science pretty much has a lot to do with modeling things. Yeah. Okay. Well, find that in the definition of science, sir. And by the way, I did create a diagram of this to show exactly how it should work on a ball, and you shouldn't be able to see that mountain from 273 miles away at that altitude.
Information in, and basically it's going to presuppose R for us and give you an output, a representation.
Presuppose R. There you go. There you go. So you assume that the radius is 3926 or whatever in order to glean your proof that the Earth is a ball with a radius of 3926. I mean, come on, man.
Of what it would look like at this altitude with this zoom, and on a spherical Earth with this radius and this circumference and such. So yes, it does presuppose. It also does have some refraction elements into it as well. But as I did here, I just put in the figures and basically got virtually very similar results here as far as the mountain peak heights. So
wait a minute. The only way that you can get these visible overhead is if you have refraction playing exactly to your advantage. Okay. Now again, and let's play this sugar water refraction video again, because you'll note that when the light travels through the density gradient parallel to the density gradient, it is going to tend towards the higher density, which means tend towards the ground. So for you to claim that refraction is going to lift those distant mountains up 3 miles into the air because of refraction, that is the opposite of what you would expect. Okay, the light from those mountains should be hitting the ground well before 273 miles. Okay, not raising the distant peaks up into the air. And by the way, these are silhouettes, right? So I'm not sure how a silhouette handles in refraction. Okay, but this is clear as day. I mean, you can deny your vision, your common sense, your logic by saying that, oh, this is a mirage, this mountain, you're not actually seeing the mountain, you're seeing the light. Because see, this mountain here is actually way down here below the horizon, and it is the magic of refraction that conveniently always causes the spherical Earth to dubiously present itself as a plane, regardless of your altitude or the distance that you're viewing. Refraction just magically always makes it appear to be a plane, right? So yeah, wow. Let's continue on.
What I wanted to outline here, and it's very simple to go and do this yourself for flat earthers, really. And of course, it must be added that Walter Bislin, this guy that I just used his curve calculator on, that has all kinds of representations and models of my observations, Soundly's observations, all that kind of stuff. He also has that flat Earth dome model thing that I showed you guys. That basically Dearth, Globebusters, and Jaren literally stole from his website. Just took it from his website. This was this guy's conception of how observations empirically could work on a spherical Earth or on a flat Earth, and they just took it and didn't say anything about this website. Didn't say anything about anything else that this website goes into, which is an amazing amount of information. That's why I always throw people over there.
Okay, and so Tim, do you have evidence that they stole it, or you're just making that claim? So it's like when you make claims like that, you have to provide evidence that they stole it. Otherwise, it is just an unsubstantiated claim bordering on slander.
So anyway, Morgile brings up something that's obviously not flat Earth evidence.
Okay, so the fact that we can see this mountain from 273 miles away, which should categorically not be possible on a ball Earth, is, according to Timmy, not flat Earth evidence. Well, isn't that convenient for Timmy?
And like I said, these guys, timed the brand new world record of distant photography of landscapes in our planet. Like, these guys aren't so bewildered by taking these observations. They're doing all of this. They're putting all these mountain peaks and heights and stuff, and they don't realize that it's a flat Earth. Or really, they actually already have those variables. Hey, I have to go this high to see this peak that's that far away, and have basically these kinds of refractive conditions so that I can actually see it. So again, remember Jay Tolan's imagery, where the first one he brought out was a complete flat Earth debunk. The second one he brought out, Jaren brought onto his channel, has like probably over 160,000 views by now, but absolutely, demonstrably shows that 6,000 feet plus of that mountain is gone. So
okay, so again, we're going back to the bottoms of objects merge with the horizon at a closer distance than the tops of objects. So in other words, it's the same argument as saying we can see further from higher in a nutshell. And for you to claim or to assert or maybe insinuate that that's somehow exclusive to a ball is absurd, okay? Go out to a basketball court and lay on your belly and see if you can see the free throw line, the line on the ground, from your belly, from the opposite hoop, okay? I guarantee you will not be able to see the opposite free throw line lying on your belly if you're lying underneath the hoop on the other side. Now, if you stand up, you will be able to see the free throw line from the very same position. So does that mean that that basketball court is now a sphere because you can see further from higher? So therefore, the basketball court must be a sphere, right? I mean, come on, man. Are you really? I just don't see you being that dense, dude. That's why I think that you are being completely disingenuous. Okay. So you've been around flat Earth long enough to where you would think that some of the information would, by like miracle of osmosis or something, seep into your head to where you could at least acknowledge a single valid point. But see, that's the thing. Globe Earth trolls will never, ever concede when a valid point is made. And it doesn't get any more valid than this. This isn't cherry picking. Yes, and when I did email the guy, I forget his name, that took these pictures, he did have to wait for a certain time of year when the refraction index was right and the sun was in the right position. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see that mountain. But it wasn't so much for the refraction index. It had to do with the light. The atmosphere does cumulatively with distance become opaque. And so only in certain conditions can you physically see through the atmosphere almost 300 miles, okay?
The trick here, the gig is here for flat earthers, is to not do long distance photography.
Wait a minute. So why are we reviewing this picture then?
It's just a mathematical impossibility on a globe if you're going to do these kinds of observations and it actually show it like it's flat. Like, it has to be, when you're seeing this far, it has to be a certain way.
Yeah, it does. It really truly does. And I don't understand how you can get that, sir.
to be. And every time when you actually do this kind of stuff for yourself, it seems to match up, right? But flat earthers, like I put in this description, will go and try to do like around 18 miles or before, because some days you can get some refractive conditions to where it can look flat enough to them.
It can look flat enough to them. Oh my goodness. No, the opposite is true, sir. Globe earthers wait for the refractive conditions to be correct so that it kind of looks spherical enough to you. See, that's the whole thing with ships dropping bottom first when they head out towards the horizon. It is an optical phenomenon. It has to do with the angular size of the hull of the ship merging, the hull of the ship merging with the horizon, apparently due to angular size. Our eyes cannot resolve a certain angular size or smaller. And so once a ship gets out to the horizon, the bottom will appear to merge with the horizon at a swifter rate than the top. Simple perspective. And yes, you do have refraction involved. Okay. But, for you to say that is it's laughable. It is absolutely laughable.
And this is another thing. I mean, look at Jaron. He still has "It's a Mirage" thing on his thing. I mean, that when that first came out, that was the Chicago skyline, and basically it proved the flat Earth. And it was like, oh, you guys are still doing 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that observer is really high up on a dune. So, and it's a time lapse. It's not a picture like Jerry's trying to promote it. It's actually a time lapse throughout the day into the night where you actually see.
So wait a minute. The picture of this Chicago skyline, the still frame, is a time lapse. How can a still frame be a time lapse? That doesn't even make any sense.
The refractive changes, stretching and pulling the.
Oh, you're talking about the Bay thing. Okay, yeah. Well, refraction, the refraction index, as that changes throughout the day due to the density of the air, the temperature, it's going to change. But I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this.
Actual mirage that was happening. And so for a long time, Mirage was like, yeah, the globe's a mirage. And then now it's more like, well, yeah, miraging happens, and actually it's an inferior mirage. That's what curvature is, and obstructions this or that. Really, I don't want to get into that, truthfully, because it's so fucking stupid. And if you ask every
potty mouth, yeah,
own excuse. So in this case, to say 10th of the flat earthers, this would be perspective, right? Maybe another 10th would be like, or maybe a 5th would be angular resolution. So none of this.
Well, so perspective and angular resolution, it's kind of the same thing, sir.
Matters, man. This is right in our face, and they put it right in our face with these long distance photography. You can't take this kind of image and it not show something like this for us to be actually on a sphere. So I presuppose that. Sure, I presuppose that. And I can also presuppose the flat Earth model and what we would expect to see as well. And so when they say that these don't take angular size into effect, this is just rhetoric that they continue to say. Because if you actually look at it, you can see the angular size here. He did this for them. Oh, you guys aren't taking angular size into effect, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, we'll put it on there. It is actually.
No, you're missing the point, though, Tim. The thing is the angular size decreases with distance, okay? That is what gives us the apparent curvature, okay? The illusion of curvature is, in fact, an object's angular size diminishing with distance. And when that object goes beyond the horizon acts as a physical barrier to your line of sight, which means you're only going to view the top of that object going down towards the horizon. So it's an optical phenomenon. And no, they don't. Excuse me. It is the angular size diminishing apparently with distance that gives us that illusion. Okay. And so these curve calculators presuppose R, as you said, they prove nothing. They really don't. Oh my goodness.
Go ahead. Oh, and then they just pretend like it's not there. They'll just steal shit from his website and fucking put it on their own.
Well, okay. Another claim with no evidence. Okay, where is your evidence? Where's your proof that they stole this from that man? Okay, this is the first I've heard of that. This is the first I've heard of that man. And so I'm not sure why you're looking to me as some, to answer some questions that you are, to answer these allegations that you have. But, with your reputation, the way that you treat people, the way that you call me a whore and a clown, and basically call my friends and my colleagues thieves and liars, you know, I have absolutely no responsibility to answer to you at all, sir.
Unbelievable. Anyway, we can, even with this modeling, basically go into a flat Earth. Now, we will have to zoom out, of course, because 1200 millimeters on a flat Earth will basically zoom us into the ground, it seems. But as you can see here, you would expect on a flat plane, and this is something you can test on your countertop or whatever, or you go to a track, have two different things of different heights. Go and do this yourself, man, on a flat, a known flat level surface. Okay, that's what it should look like. The taller thing should be taller, and actually, it's quite the contrary in this video. Not only is this mountain taller than this in real life, this mountain from this distance is much taller than this taller mountain in real life.
Okay, but Tim, you do realize that objects that are further from you will appear to have a smaller angular size, right? I mean, you cannot be that dense. There's no way. Like, you are playing a role, dude. It's obvious to anybody with a brain that you're just completely disingenuous. Like, why am I even answering your questions here? Like,
right? So it's all some kind of a fucking illusion, or this guy tilted his camera down, therefore everything, you know, contorts, wobbles, and ziggles and
nobody said that. You're saying that.
zaggles and everything. So they can say whatever they want, but really, I just wanted to come on and say, like, it's funny to me that some of the top flat earthers, Jaron, like I said, with Jay Tolan, showing curved Earth, spherical Earth evidence and saying it's flat. Now we had Morgile on the Nameless show there on today with clear evidence that doesn't fit the flat Earth narrative, trying to say that it's not his work. First off, he's never done any observations.
That's irrelevant. Okay, so what you're saying is that all the pictures from NASA are your work? Okay, because like the only thing that you've really got are pictures of the Earth from space, right? That's your work. And by the way, that's all fake and nonsense too. So what you're saying, your argument here against this damning evidence, and this is just one thing, but your argument against this damning piece of evidence against the globe is that this mountain here is closer and shorter, in altitude than this mountain here, which is more distant and taller. So this one that's shorter and closer appears taller than this one that is actually taller and more distant. Therefore, this is a debunk of flat Earth. Dude, like, really? You cannot be that dense, dude. Honestly, okay? This is everything to do with perspective. Everything. Period. I mean, like, it is very simple. But so your argument is that because this mountain appears taller than that one, which is actually taller, then this is just proof positive of a globe. Let me get the diagram out again, because this shows not to scale representation of the geometry involved. Okay, the observer height, 1.75 miles, taken from a distance of 273 miles. The mountain that you're pointing to, that you can see in that picture, and I don't think that you're saying the picture's a fake, you're saying that mountain that should be a half a mile, the top of it should be a half a mile below the apparent horizon, proves a ball Earth, because a mountain that is more distant and taller appears shorter optically to this observer here. Wow. Just wow. And by the way, the whole angular size thing, when you're looking at this sort of orthographic view of the curve, this is how the curve calculator does its math. It's assuming that this distant object here is going to remain the same angular size as if it was right in front of you. Okay, but we all know that with distance, objects diminish in angular size. Okay, and so your argument is folly. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. Like, I can't believe you would even say that because a more distant mountain, which is taller, appears shorter than this one, then it's a moot point. Dude, you are so grasping at straws. You really are, because so like if this mountain is further and taller, you think it should appear optically taller for this observer here, dude. Like you can't actually think that. I don't see you as being that dense, but you do a good job of playing stupid. I gotta hand it to you.
Never looked at any of my observations. You've never talked about any of my observations.
Why would I talk about your observations? This one here is from 273 miles away. So I don't care if you've done 26 or 27.5 mile observations. This trumps it, period.
This is the Morgile I'm talking about. I don't think he's ever done an observation.
No, I've never done an observation. I'm blind and deaf.
I think he's just a more clever Dell, basically.
Well, I like Dell, and so I take that as a compliment.
And that's not saying much, truthfully.
Well, say that to Dell's face.
That's like not saying much at all, truthfully.
Well, anybody that thinks that objects that are taller will always appear taller no matter the distance needs to really like check their brain for defects, honestly.
Anywho, yeah.
Anywho, yeah, so well, you've done absolutely nothing but prove what a frickin' disingenuous globetard you are, sir. I mean, that you proved nothing. You really wasted 15 minutes of everyone's time for that, for you to say, oh, because the Morgile's never done any observations, and this mountain here is taller and it's further, so it's a ball because it appears shorter optically. Dude, it's perspective, okay? It is perspective. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. So, like, yeah, why so many dislikes? Yeah, really. Yeah, so this live stream now has 60 thumbs up and 82 thumbs down. So anybody out there, there's 136 people watching. So anybody out there that would like to give it a thumbs up, that would be very much appreciated. Because wow, yeah, why so many dislikes, Mr. Golden V? So let's check in on the chat here. Joshua Balsamo says, Bob, that takes blind faith, kind of like the Helio model. Anyone know why I keep seeing the same stars yearly? Doesn't make sense in the Helio model. Yeah, agreed. I thought that my entire life, that over the course of history, the relative position of the constellation stars has never changed. Because we're supposedly flying through space in multiple different directions, spinning around, getting different angles towards space, and we always just get the same stars. Ute says, ballers think, oh, where'd it go? Ute says, ballers think our eyes can magically not be curved lenses that can miraculously see life in orthographic view. Bless. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, our eyes are indeed convex lenses. And one thing that I had never thought about that I learned pretty recently, if you, like we do see everything curved. So like, let me give an example. So the stuff that is a couple of feet away from me versus something that's 50 miles away, they appear equidistant in my little bubble of vision here. And it is only certain visual cues, i.e. perspective, that allow us to gauge the distance and depth of things. Okay, but so if you take something that you know to be straight, so like take this lighter, and you have it say a foot away from you, it appears to have a straight line edge. But if you bring it really, really close to your vision, really close, you'll start to see that we do have a curvature to our vision. And, this proves that we see through convex lenses. And that's how we interact with the world visually, is through convex lens eyeballs. And so, yeah. Now, in reality, objects that are distant from you, the angular size of that object is actually diminishing, apparently. And the fact that we're seeing that diminishing angular size through convex lens eyeballs does aid in this confusion of curvature, I think. It's what it seems to me. And so, what if we had rectilinear eyeballs. I mean, would we see the world differently? Would it be that much different? I don't know, because I think our brains kind of fill in the gaps. Like we get visual cues, and like automatically our brains just sort of fill in the gaps and help us to gauge distance and depth and stuff like that. Okay, Kander says, remember when Tim was confronted at that bar during the FE meetup? Dude was a little weasel in a bean. He got exposed and made to look a fool. Yeah, I still suspect that was a bit of a setup. Whoops, excuse me, guys. I still suspect that was a bit of a setup, but whatever. Because smart people vote. Okay, Joe Mama. Oh, what's up, Joe Mama? I'm gonna wrench Joe Mama. Okay, Tim is either so pissed that he spent his life studying lies that he's going to use his intellect to the very end supporting the lies. He has the right to be pissed, but he has to get past it. Yeah, like he did a very piss poor job of responding to the Beyond Horizons picture, which is a very excellent proof against the ball. His only argument was that there's a more distant mountain that's taller that appears shorter. Oh my God, man. That's just absolute insanity. So, like, you think that a telephone pole that's, say, a mile away is going to appear taller than, a stop sign? No, the telephone pole is going to look like that, and the stop sign that's closer to you is going to look like that. I mean, it's obvious, man. I mean, really? Oh my God, Amy B 40, thank you for joining for the first time live. It's I appreciate that. Yeah, Joe Mama, I know. Stop looking for proof from these people that doesn't exist. I know. Brian Marshall says, what's even crazier is that crap Tim said, people listened to it and believed it. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Oh, good. So we got the thumbs up, thumbs down, almost to a 50-50. That's nice. Thank you, guys. If we can get it up a little higher, that would be spectacular. But hey, beggars can't be choosy. Okay, so there's just a few points that I wanted to touch on today because there's really great flat Earth evidence, like the Beyond Horizons picture that we just looked at. The fact that in a high altitude weather balloon, the horizon rises with the observer. So, like, they say that the horizon is comprised or is caused by the physical Earth curving down away from you, like in this diagram here. This is the horizon according to this observer. So if this observer were to begin raising in altitude, you would think that horizon level would you'd have to look lower and lower down to view the horizon. But what actually happens in reality is the horizon raises with you with altitude. So I really love this dog cam video because we'll mute that. Because well, it's got one of the most awesome hotspots that you can find, to me, showing really clear evidence that the sun is local. Like this right here, here's the sun, here's its hotspot reflection below it. According to the ball Earth, that oh, you guys aren't seeing my screen, you're seeing my mug. Well, here, let me share my screen again if I can get away with it. Do 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 do. Okay, yeah, let's give away our link there, Google, you stupid thing. Okay, so yeah, so this dog cam, I think it gets up to over 100,000 feet. At this point, I think it's about 80,000 feet. But this right here is just such an excellent shot because you can clearly see that the sun is local due to this reflection. If the sun were 93 million miles that way, like way the hell back that way, how would it be casting a hotspot reflection right there below where the sun clearly is above the ground? I mean, use your eyes. Okay, so that's another one. The horizon rises with the observer with altitude. These are flat Earth proofs / globe Earth debunks. There are so many of them that Tim and his cronies will never even begin to answer or respond to. They just won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They will use ad hominem attacks. They will call us morons and attack our intelligence and our, credibility, and attack our integrity, but they will not actually have any valid arguments for the globe. And I'm working on a video right now. It's taken me a little longer than expected, where I'm just recompiling, putting together more flat Earth proofs, pulling some stuff out of the book, and just trying to keep it going out there, because there is just this huge push by, I think it's JTRIG, GCHQ trolls, to discredit flat Earth and put the cat back into the bag. And so I feel a moral imperative to keep arguing for flat Earth, to keep displaying the evidence, doing my own observations. Yes, I do use my eyeballs and my ears and my senses. So for him to say that I've never done an observation is just absurd. But like Polaris, I'll just start with Polaris and maybe do a couple others. But Polaris, is always central to all the other stars. So we'll see if we can get a Polaris time lapse here. This single thing completely debunks the ball Earth theory. So Polaris remains central to all the other stars in the north. According to the ball Earth theory, we have this thing called axial precession. So let's see here. We'll get you a diagram for axial precession. They say that the Earth's axis, as it spins, let me copy that. Throw it over here. So the axis of the Earth is supposedly wobbling like in this fashion, once every 26,000 years. And that seems like a very long time, and it is. However, when you break it down per degree, it's 1 degree of precession every 72 years. And that comes out to, a half a degree over 36 years, a quarter of a degree over 18 years. And so in order to get this effect throughout all of history, where Polaris remains central to all the other stars, and by the way, the ancient Romans, thousands of years ago, had the same phenomenon with Polaris. You cannot have both. You cannot have axial precession and have Polaris remain central to all the other stars. It's simply impossible. And so this sort of huge contradiction in the ball Earth theory is just one of many, but it's a big one, because astronomers throughout history, starting with Hipparchus and I believe Ptolemy, or Ptolemy as they say, observed the effects of precession. And they deemed that it was a 26,000 year cycle, 1 degree of precession every 72 years. And the way they observed this was looking at, on the vernal equinox, looking at which stars the sun rises in front of. So once per year, they can observe this very minute change, 1 degree in 72 years. So it would take them an entire lifetime to notice 1 degree of change in this precession cycle. So if you think that those guys would notice that, which again, they can observe it once a year on the vernal equinox, very minute change, barely noticeable, and they noticed it, they documented it, you'd think that those guys would notice Polaris not being in the central position anymore. You'd think that we'd have noticed it. Since their time, it should have gone through about 25 degrees of its precession cycle. There has been no change in Polaris's centrality for all of recorded history. Okay, that is not possible in the ball Earth theory, because in the ball Earth theory, you must have precession of the axis. And so this is another checkmate for the globe. It's dead with this one point. The globe Earth model does not work here. Okay. So what are the trolls' answer to this? Well, some of them will say, oh, well, we used to have a different North Star, so there's your proof. Okay, but where is the quarter of a degree of precession in 18 years? Where's the half a degree in precession over my lifetime, over 36 years? It doesn't exist. because the Earth is not a spinning ball and the heliocentric model does not work. Another one, real quick, is the eclipse phenomenon. You know, the one time in all of reality when we can actually observe and measure the heavenly bodies is during a total solar eclipse. And, you know, what's going on, let's see, solar eclipse. What's going on in the solar eclipse, according to the Baller theory, is you've got this sort of situation where the moon casts a very teeny tiny little shadow on the Earth. This is what they claim is happening. Okay, now when you measure that shadow of the moon, the actual totality of the event where the moon is casting its shadow, it's usually about 50, 75 miles in diameter. So what they're saying is the moon, which is what is it, 1,000 miles in diameter, something like that. The moon is somehow casting a shadow that is a few dozen miles in diameter, sometimes as little as a couple, like 2 or 3 miles in diameter. Nowhere in nature can you demonstrate a single light source and single obstruction casting a shadow that diminishes in angular size proportionally with distance. Okay. Yet, this is exactly what must necessarily be happening in order to continue buying the globe model. Okay, so this is a big problem. Okay, 1,000-mile diameter object does not cast a shadow that's 50 miles in diameter. In reality, it does not happen. So what they say is that, well, it's because the sun's rays are converging on one another, and then they're diverging at some point out in space, and that's what causes them to cast this peculiar pinpointer shadow upon the Earth. Okay. The problem is that flies in the face with Eratosthenes' method of measuring the sphericity, or measuring the curvature of the Earth, or the radius or whatever. Because according to his theory, or according to his laws, the sun's rays must be coming in parallel, or nearly perfectly parallel. Now, to say that slightly divergent is the same thing as nearly perfectly parallel does not answer this question, because it has to be pretty widely divergent to cast this pinpointer shadow, right? 1,000-mile diameter object casting a shadow that's, say, 12 miles in diameter sometimes, 50 miles in diameter other times, has to be widely divergent. So Eratosthenes' method falls apart when you realize, solar eclipses are causing the moon to cast a shadow that's a few miles in diameter. Falls apart. You have a contradiction here, yet another one. So how many must we go through? How many of these contradictions in the globe Earth theory must we go through before these globetards admit that the ball Earth model doesn't actually work? It works for toddlers who've been force-fed to believe this nonsense, and that's pretty much about it. Okay, so you've got all these contradictions, theory on top of conjecture, and at some point you just have to throw your hands up and say, my God, man, the ball Earth model really doesn't work. It has some serious issues with it. And so, gravity, yeah. So, we can go on for days with this stuff. I mean, there's literally a world full of evidence that the Earth is stationary, doesn't have curvature. The fact that we can see that mountain range from 273 miles away is adequate to demolish the ball Earth theory. I mentioned the thing with Polaris demolishes the ball Earth theory, because you have to have Polaris central to the axis, perfectly aligned to our axis. You got to have it because we observe it, but you also got to have axial precession because we observe that too. So, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have both of those things. Same thing goes with the eclipses. You can't have the moon casting a pinpoint shadow because of the divergence of the sunlight in space, and also have the sunlight coming in at parallel angles to one another. So, and we could go on with these, but wow, I've been going 2 hours already. That's pretty good. I was only planning on going an hour, but they say time flies when you're having fun. So any questions from the live audience out there? If you've got any questions or anything you want me to cover real quick, I will try. I will try my darndest. In the meantime, if you guys would like to contribute to the channel, you can do so through PayPal to www.paypal.me/themorgile. I'll put a link in the chat. Or you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 per month at www.patreon.com/themorgile. Really could use your guys' help. I do want to give a big shout out and thanks to everyone that has supported the channel. It really means a lot to me and my family. It goes a long way to help. And if you guys would like to support, there is the link for PayPal, and here goes the link for Patreon. So any questions out there before we wrap up? What is gravity? You know what? I'll let Neil deGrasse Tyson answer that. Yeah, I will definitely let Neil deGrasse Tyson answer that.
This is Star Talk.
Well, where is it?
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference.
Okay, let's try that again.
This.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No.
There you go. That's what gravity is. He says it can describe. Here, I'll let him go on. We'll just let him go on.
Here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
Okay. And so, oh, that's right. I'm not sharing my screen still. Well, you guys heard him anyway. But this is the same guy who's dropping his mic, saying dropping his microphone on the floor is what gravity is, right? Yeah. Yeah, insult generator. Like, why would you prompt people to thumbs down my live stream? I mean, that's not nice. Hey, Nathan Oakley, what's up, buddy? Had fun with you the other day, man. I just gave you a wrench, by the way. Yeah, so, okay. Any other questions, comments, anything anybody wants me to cover before we wrap up? Because, again, I've gone about 2 hours, but I do want to thank you guys for joining the live stream. Jeff M says, could you show or explain what the loop deloops some planets do? Well, you know, the motion of the heavens is not exclusive to either model. That's the best way I can put it. So you can have the motion of the wandering stars and planets in the flat Earth model and in the globe Earth model. It really doesn't prove anything. I mean, it goes back to the whole, you know, if you want to measure the dimensions of a pool table, you certainly don't take the pool balls and go measure them, right? It's the same exact thing. You know, geometry measures. I mean, geometry means measure the Earth. And so in order to prove or disprove, you know, the Earth's shape, practice geometry and measure the Earth. Okay, Flatfish, you just got removed. Pet Shay says, what have I replaced the vacuum of space with? Well, I haven't replaced it with anything. I believe that the vacuum of space does not exist. I believe there's good evidence to suggest that we have a magnetic field above and around us, central to the north, that would appear as a torus, upside down like a bundt cake, and you know that holds enough charge to where it's you know, causes everything to stay in. I don't think it's necessarily a dome. Perhaps there's a dome. Perhaps there's some crystalline structure that's adhering to that magnetic field. That's very possible, because you know you've got lower density gases that clearly raise in altitude, helium, hydrogen, and such. And once that gets up to the certain levels, I don't see why it couldn't sort of conglomerate, condense, possibly freeze. And yeah, so maybe we've got a dome. I just don't think that it. I don't think that if there is, some sort of a crystalline structure adherent to that magnetic field, I don't think that it meets with the ground anywhere. So if you go south past Antarctica and go looking for the edge of the dome or whatever, I don't think you're going to find it. So I haven't replaced the vacuum of space with anything other than the fact that the vacuum of space doesn't exist, could not exist. And of course, that is because we have a pressurized environment here on the ground in reality, and a pressurized environment cannot exist adjacent to a vacuum or a lower pressure area, right? So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. I really love and appreciate all of you guys for joining me. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful weekend, and God bless you all. And as always, spread the word, spread the world, and peace out, everybody. I should see you tomorrow. Cheers.